A typical way of getting your songs to sound loud is routing all your sounds into the master, throwing a limiter on there, and pressing it up as far as we can to the ceiling so that we can get our entire track loud. This is another way to be able to get a little bit more clarity, have a little bit more control, and get your songs maybe even a little bit louder. I'm not saying this is the only way that works, but this is another creative way to go about things, to take a different angle and try a different approach. So in this video, I'm going to teach you about group limiting and group clipping. If you want to learn more about music production, not only music production, but how to create a business around your music production, create a full-time business so that you can quit your job, subscribe to this channel. You'll find it really helpful and very beneficial if that's something you're trying to do. So to get into the video, like I said earlier, how we usually get songs to be louder is we mix the track down first, we send it through a master, and on that master track, we have a limiter where we crank the volume up. And when we crank the volume up on a limiter, what happens is we try to hit 0 dB or just below that. So we take all our sounds, our drums, our bass, our melodies, our vocals, everything, and push it up against the ceiling. The problem with that, especially in dance music or hip hop, our 808s, our bass, our kick drums, they're louder than all the other sounds. The melodies are kind of quiet, but the bass is loud, so it's gonna hit that ceiling first. The bass or the kick drum is gonna hit that limiter ceiling first, and when it does, it takes all of these elements that are grouped together and it's gonna start pressing it down and lowering the volume. If you have everything running to one limiter, you can't tell the difference between, oh, this is the bass, so let's not duck the melody, or let's not duck the vocal. If it hits the ceiling, everything's getting ducked because it's grouped all into one limiter. And what you can do besides this is group these into individual slots. So let's say the vocals. We don't want to limit that as much. We don't want to press that and over compress it because we lose our dynamic range and we lose the parts that are loud and the parts that are quiet. That's what's great about vocals, is that there's certain parts that are loud, there's certain parts that are quiet, there's certain parts that are medium. And so we want to retain that dynamic range and we want to group that separately and affect that differently. Whereas the melody is going to hit, but it's not going to be hitting as hard as the bass. So what can we do? Let's say this group bass is hitting a little bit harder than the melody. Instead of just being like, oh, we can't do anything about it, since this is grouped separately, we can turn this up so that we can get that melody a little bit louder and not have it attached to the same sound or the same limiter as the bass or the kick drum. Therefore, it reacts differently at different timing. When you have your drums separate, your bass separate, your melody separate, we can start limiting these and clipping them to the ceiling a lot differently. So when this bass hits and clips at the ceiling, it's not going to affect the melody. We can still turn that melody up a little bit so that we're not getting all of our elements compressed down when something triggers that ceiling. So this is a concept that a lot of us learned from Skrillex. He gets his songs really loud, right? He makes great dance songs. They get loud, but they stay super clean, mixes sound good. And this is a trick that he showed us in one of his Ableton projects in his videos. So I just saw it and thought that this was a great idea and I wanted to share it with you guys if you guys are having trouble with getting your songs to sound loud. Because a lot of times, like, we turn up our 808s because we want them really loud. We turn up our kick drums because we want the song to hit hard. But when we do that, we sacrifice other things because we're running it all through the same limiter. And it's as simple as just separating it into different groups and affecting them differently. And even then, once you've affected them differently, we can take these drums, we can take these bass, we can take this melody, we can take this vox, and we can run it through a master limiter still. But we have these things at a different level so that when these all come together, we don't have as much of a problem with trying to crank it all through one limiter. So I hope that was helpful. If you want to learn more about concepts like these in music production and you want to learn how to turn your production into a business, subscribe to the channel, like this video. I promise if you do this, you're going to get much more benefits out of subscribing to this channel so that you get content like this. And if you want to learn how to create a high-ticket business, selling beats to, or your production or services, mixing, mastering to other artists and other musicians, and learn how to charge high ticket, meaning like you charge $1,000 for a beat, $2,000, $5,000 for an EP, $10,000 for an album. There's certain business skills that you have to have. And if you want to learn those, there's a training in the description. I'm going to leave there. Feel free to register for the training and get started right away. And I'll see you in the next video.